Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Lavanya Krishnan, it is so nice to see your face. We spoke at a conference together back in 2022. That's how we met.
Yes.
And one of the cool things about here is you're actually a client of mine of my online women's strength program. We'll talk a little bit about that too. So it's actually great to have you here. But you've also got some serious credentials. Masters of Exercise Science, Masters of Public Health. You're an epidemiologist, you're a personal trainer. And we're actually going to talk a lot about you're an avid globetrotter, lots of travel. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It is lovely to be here. Thank you.
Good. So let's actually do the travel thing. You don't compromise on your fitness when you travel. Why not?
Well, fitness for me is a lifelong thing. It's as normal to me as brushing my teeth in the morning. So when I've incorporated that into my lifestyle, taking time off when I'm on vacation or traveling around the world for other things, it doesn't really make sense to me because a few days can turn into a week, can turn into a month, and then before you know it, you are relying on that motivation to get to a workout. Motivation for me is okay, but I think I rely more on discipline. So if I can do my workouts when I'm traveling in some way, shape, or form, it will keep me going for life. So that's why I don't compromise on it.
Do you think everybody needs to have that kind of a hard line?
No, I don't think so. Because see, we get to work out, we get to strength train, we get to do this. And I love the gym. I love working out. I enjoy it. It is my time for myself. Everybody doesn't have to look at it that way. Some people might just want to take a walk. And when they're going on vacation, that's a hard stop for them. And it also depends on a lot of factors. Like, do you have kids? What is the rest of your life like? You know, if you are working all the time and working out, maybe that vacation you just want a hard stop and not do anything. And that's perfectly okay. I don't want anybody to tie morality to working out or that you have to do it. It's something we choose to do. We get to do it. And if you enjoy it, absolutely go for it.
This episode is brought to you by KNKG, my favorite gym bag brand. For years, I did two stupid things. I bought cheap gym bags, which eventually fell apart, and I traveled with and checked a big suitcase. KNKG changed all that. In 2020, my aunt bought me a KNKG. Back then, they were known as King Kong duffel bag. Here it is. 5 years later, it's still indestructible. And last year, I spent hours on YouTube researching backpacks for travel. And I kept coming back to the KNKG Edge, which now goes everywhere with me. Travel, gym, work. I also just got a KNKG Conquer backpack and their Plus duffel bag. And these are both perfect for the gym. My main issue is I have too many bags and I can only use one at a time. Investing in high quality gear means you save money in the long run too. And I can save you guys 15% on yours. Go to www.knkg.com/Andrew 59676. That's www.knkg.com/Andrew 59676, or go to the link in the show notes. Where are the pitfalls with someone who grants themselves permission to, let's say, oh, I approach not just vacations, but other interruptions in life when life gets busy, because I think it's all part of that same umbrella. Where are the pitfalls for the person who might grant themselves permission a little too much? And what would you say to that person about what you think is a better boundary around how much grace to give themselves?
Right. So first of all, I would say giving grace is very important when it comes to working out and nutrition and all those things. Where it can get a little dicey is if we are relying on this as sort of like there's an end point to fitness, or I'm doing this for 6 weeks, I'm doing this for 8 weeks, I'm doing this for a prescribed amount of time, because then what happens is we kind of beat ourselves up if we are not sticking to a certain routine. And then, like I said before, giving yourself permission can be slippery because you can take that as it's just another day and it's just another day. And before you know it, you haven't gotten those workouts in, or you haven't, been falling off track with nutrition. And if your goals are, and it's all dependent on goals, if your goals are to lead somewhat of a healthy lifestyle, I think sticking to habits over the long term is very important. It is sort of a discipline, is what I would say. So the pitfall, it can lead to prolonged absences, and you want to sort of have some kind of boundary around that.
This episode is brought to you by Macros First. I've always struggled with nutrition tracking apps, even the slightest hassle or friction, and it breaks my habit. That changed with Macros First. When I tried it, I told my friend, the founder, Jacob, quote, this is, well, let's just call it a certain other app on steroids. It's the easiest app to use, and it has a free barcode scanner, which if you use tracking apps, you know this is a really big deal. I recommend Macros First to all my clients and friends, and even had them sponsor my 2024 conference. Here's an example feature I love. Auto-calculate food portions. Let's say you've got 30 grams of protein left for the day, and you're thinking, how much chicken breast do I need to hit that? In other apps, you're left guessing serving sizes, hoping you get close to your 30-gram goal. With Macros First, just tell it the target you want to hit, and it tells you exactly how much to eat. No more macro Tetris. Other apps ask, how much do you eat? Macros First also lets you ask, how much should I eat? And while Macros First's premium version is incredible for any user, the basic version, which is nowhere near basic, is free to use. So you can go to either the Apple Store or Google Play to download. You probably travel more than an average person. How much you travel? And it's because you travel so much. I mean, people think I travel a lot. I travel in pockets. Like I'm still a full-time in-person personal trainer, right? Despite the other shit I do. So people just think I'm on a plane constantly. Like, no, not at all. But you do travel a lot. So is part of this the sheer volume that if you didn't work out, stay active while you traveled, there would be a really significant part of your year where you simply weren't keeping up your strength training?
Right. So if we look at it as a 52-week period, I probably I don't consider little road trips as travel because I do them a lot, like little places that are 3 or 4 hours away, but I also travel internationally quite a bit. And if I were to not work out, I would easily say about 60 to 90 days, I would not be working out. I travel extensively and I enjoy traveling. And when you look at it in a 52-week period, that's, a good chunk of the year we're sedentary to some degree. So I think it's important to have habits that we can sustain for a long time. Remember, every workout isn't 100%, dripping sweat, going all out. It's some sort of movement. And I'm happy with that.
How do you build in the flexibility to handle? There's a bunch of stuff here. I guess, how do you proactively plan to stay active when you travel, given the fact that you are in different environments?
So I look at it as some non-negotiables. So for me, when I'm packing for a trip, I would immediately have 2 sets of gym clothes and running shoes, or some sort of walking shoes or lifting shoes, something that is a non-negotiable for me that goes wherever I go. So when I have that in my mind, I tell myself, well, you've spent this space, taken up this space in your suitcase to bring this. You could be looking at it in a hotel room, or you could just pull it out and wear it and go to the gym and hit something. So that's one thing I would say is packing in advance for a trip. Second thing is I always look out for hotels with gyms. That's another thing I do before I go on a trip and decide where to stay. I'm looking to see, are there gyms in the hotels I'm going to be staying? Is there an outdoor park? If there's not a gym, are there places where I can hike or move? And what kind of a place is it? Worst case scenario, I will sit and do a 20-minute body weight workout in the hotel room if I have. And I have done that. So I just build those habits in before a trip so that I have that room to work out and get things in.
What about the nutrition side of stuff? Because we're obviously out of our routine environment, which is, the more routine your nutrition is, the easier it is to execute on it, right? I had a post recently where there's a couple of narratives, I'll side quest here, that I've come up with clients a lot, is people who, and I use the word narrative very deliberately because it's not an empirical truth. It is a story someone's told themselves. And usually those stories are supporting something that someone doesn't want to do or something that someone does want to do. And one of it is, I don't like leftovers, right? Or I don't like eating the same meals multiple days in a row. And while I don't lecture anybody on this, the post sort of there was a few people who were just kind of pissy about it. Guess what? You're going to just get petulant people on the internet who just don't like things and then they react. I can't help you guys. I'm sorry. That's your problem, right? You're emotionally reactive to shit on the internet. There's an issue there. But underpinning all this, again, is this story about, I don't want to do this thing. And I've noticed a very strong correlation with people who can't eat the same meals consistently or don't like leftovers, which then means that you have an obstacle with more frequent cooking. But usually it results in more ordering out, more takeout, et cetera. And this correlates very highly, I find, with people who are struggling with body weight, metabolic health, or healthy habits. So all that. How do you manage to be proactive, plan your nutrition when you are going to be in different environments constantly?
So one of the few things I do is before I go somewhere, just like I'm researching gyms in hotels or hotels with gyms, I'm also looking at places to eat in the cities I'm going to be in. So recently I went to a place called Uzbekistan, which is in Central Asia, and it is part of the Silk Route from China all the way to Turkey. And it's a it's a pretty distant place. And I looked up all the restaurants that that were in the vicinity of the places we're going to be staying in the tiny little cities. I'm a vegetarian, so normally I always look out for restaurants because I just like to be prepared. Uzbekistan is a very meat-centric
Mm.
country, nation. So one of the things I do when I go to some places is I pack food with me. I take
Hmm.
easy to make meals, so for which I probably just need like hot water or something like that. These days we have a lot of options. It just takes a little time to plan and prepare for that. So I have taken, when I went to Easter Island, we took food with us because it's very hard to come by, nutrition sometimes when you're on the move. And, so one of the things is I pack food. I take things that are easy to make, and I also prioritize protein and fiber and vegetables in every meal, which makes it a little easier so that I'm not always indulging or, just dealing with hunger pangs and ordering the first thing that's available, which might not always be the best choice for me. So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you also do a fair bit of walking with some of these places, right? Like
Quite a bit.
one of my favorite trips that I saw you post on social media was you went to Petra. Now, if people don't know what Petra is, Petra's damn cool. If you've ever seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, okay, like Petra was featured in that. It was this like city carved into the cliffs, and ultimately where they found if I remember correctly, it's where they found the
Yeah.
Holy Grail in the end. So you were there. That was super cool. Now, I'm guessing, like, how did you get in there? Because that's a long trek.
It is a long trek. I think at the end of that day, I had about 36,000 steps. So there are a couple ways to get there. You can take a golf cart from the front entrance to the
Mhm.
Treasury, which is that big building that was made famous by Indiana Jones. Or what we chose to do was take the back road hike because there's another place called the monastery that we wanted to visit. So you take a little bus to the back end of the Petra, the little Petra, and then you start hiking from there. You go up, through the stones and back areas, and you eventually come to this Indiana Jones, uh, spot. And I do a lot of walking. If I can't get to a gym, I'm going to a lot of, I'm doing a lot of walking around everywhere. And so when you eat, like, we walked I think we started at 7:30 in the morning, and by the time we finished our hike, it was 12 in the afternoon. I just eat whatever is available, and it's okay because I've burned so many calories, so I don't worry about overeating on a day like that. So the walking is definitely another huge part of my travels. I try to move as much as I can. You can get two things done. You get activity and you get to see the place.
Well, you almost then have an issue with managing your energy and getting enough fuel in some of those environments, right?
Right.
And I guess it's a challenge. Almost like being, not having meat in your diet, having a plant-based diet. You almost have to. You're forced to be proactive in researching. And I think this is the commonality here. That was the thing with the workouts and with your nutrition. You're planning ahead. But I think that's actually a really highly correlated thing with people who are successful with their managing their nutrition activity anyways. They think a little bit ahead, they plan, they set boundaries around this stuff. And and I understand in our modern life why people feel like they're beholden to being reactive to the way that the universe comes at them. But I think that even if you're mentally tired, sitting back and doing a little bit of pre-planning on anything, highest leverage behavior, you can engage it in almost anything.
Yes. Absolutely anybody can do that. No, because we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different struggles in life. We have different situations. We have different things we're dealing with, from children to taking care of elderly parents, and a lot of things going on. But even like 5 minutes of planning something, anything, whether it could be a workout, whether it's a meal, it's one meal for the day, one habit, and writing it down makes a huge difference. I find that for myself, when I write something down, it's looking at me in the face, and I have to be answerable to at least that little notebook. If not to a person, to a notebook. And it's written down. I've written it, so I got to finish it. So I think a lot of this is adopting this mental attitude of I can do it. You know how some people say you can do the hard things. You really can do the hard things because we have so much information coming at us these days, competing for our attention. And the simple things still work. They're not sexy, they're very boring, but I'm a huge fan of consistency when it comes to planning. I think it makes a big difference.
One of the biggest travel hacks I've encountered, and I'm obsessed with making travel easier,
Yeah,
is I will have a Word file is my itinerary for any trip. Because now I've ended up with a lot of situations where I bounce between multiple cities to do different things.
right.
So I have an upcoming August trip where I will be in Toronto for 2 nights to speak at
Okay.
CanFit Pro.
Okay.
So I will end up for 5 nights in Newfoundland to visit family. And
Yeah.
then I'm going to have, I think, 3 nights in Austin, Texas. And I've got a couple things to go and do there professionally. And all my flights, including my boarding zone, are in there because I've been in this situation where you get to the airport and you're like looking for email, and it's like email search function is really shitty when you need it really quickly. It just is.
Yes.
So all this info is in there. The flight number, uh, the the booking code, whatever. It's all in this place. So I'm not searching
Right.
for it. The address of the hotel goes in there. The seat that I'm in, because I have forgotten what zone I was boarding in and seat going into stuff. And then I'm worried about, okay, and you lead into this. And if I'm traveling with like carry on and now with flights, depending on when you board, there may not be overhead. And if, let's say, I have a connecting flight, the last thing in the world is I want to have to check a bag. You're waiting.
Yep. Yep.
And it's the emotional anxiety of waiting for this stuff boarding a flight. So if I can just make sure this is all carefully listed out and planned in one
Yep.
place, easy to access, it just reduces my stress of the experience and makes it much easier.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree with you.
Good.
I used to do a lot of check-in, and then my husband's a big proponent of carry on, carry on, carry on, because you never know when you have to wait. If you have another flight that's earlier, if there's one flight coming in late, and we've been in those situations when we travel so much, it's you just have to run and get to the next flight, and it makes it so much easier with just a carry-on to travel. And one of the neat stories here is a couple of years last year, actually, around this time, I was traveling to LA for a family event, and my flight out of Buffalo was canceled because of some issue. We went to the runway, and then came back to the gate because there was a mechanical issue. Fine.
Mm.
I got on the next flight the next morning, and the connection was through Newark. Now, for if people travel a lot, Newark Airport can get pretty hairy with connections.
Mm.
And we landed, and my next flight to LA was, they were practically closing the doors. I got to the gate at 8:16. They closed at 8:15. But the amount of running I did with my backpack from one end of the terminal across to the other, I mean, it was an entire cardio workout. And if I wasn't
Mm.
working out on a regular basis, I would not have been able to do that. I was by myself, I had a carry. So I think it goes back to your, travel hacks and like, why do I work out? You never know when it's going to come in handy for you.
I remember, and it was early COVID stuff. I think it was 2021, and I had to run to catch. I'd ended up going the wrong way and coming out of customs, and I had to go back through
Mm.
in Vancouver's airport. And I remember realizing that, wait a minute, this is across the airport. And I started running, and I got a nasty wake up call. My cardiovascular, because I was running, and my
Yeah.
cardiovascular stamina just couldn't deal with it. And I hit a point where I'm like, I'm not making this flight, and I wasn't going to make it, as I
Yeah.
realized. And I just stopped, and I was like, wow, this is really bad. And it was actually one of the major drivers for me to start adding more zone 2 cardio into my workouts. My stamina has dramatically improved as a result of it, and I feel much better. But that
Yeah.
was a shock at how, hey, I'm this big muscular person, lift weights all the time, but how out of shape I felt in that moment and the stress of trying to catch a flight.
Yeah.
I never wanted to feel that way again. Yeah.
Sometimes those things make us move, right? They make us like take a look at whatever we're doing and how can we be better? Because we could all do something different to be a little better in something. Otherwise, we kind of give the idea that I know what I'm doing and this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life. But I think we're always learning. We're always incorporating different aspects of fitness into our daily life, especially as we get older. I think we're about the same age, so a lot of the joints are starting at this age. So, I never realized how little mobility work I was doing until the last 2 years when I'm like, "Ugh, things are, I need to include more of that." And so I think it's all about aging well, aging better.
Hmm. And I'm more conscientious of that than ever. I'm definitely going to shout out one of my sponsors here. You guys will hear an ad for King Kong bags. I love these guys. And like now, like I said, I won't even take a roller bag. I just take this big backpack and I will take this and everything I need across 3 cities in 10 days. I'll
Yeah.
be able to do some laundry at my folks' place. And it's all going in that backpack. So I love them. So, hey guys, check it out. Okay. And without making this entire podcast an ad for my women's program, I'm actually currently doing an intake. Anybody listening at the end, there'll be a discount code for you guys a little bit about it. But how how much has having a program with someone else at the helm of it for support, how does that work for you? How does that make your life easier, especially with how busy you are?
I love it. I love your program. I love it because when I'm training clients all day, 5 days a week or 6 days a week, I don't have to think about programming for myself. It's not that I can't do it. It's just I don't want to do it sometimes. I just want to go in, get my workout in, and come out. And it also definitely helps to have a coach who has done the work for you, who was there for you when you need feedback, because we can't see ourselves sometimes. Sure, we're standing in the mirror, but it always helps to get another opinion from somebody who knows what they're doing. And you certainly know what you're doing, and you have plenty of experience. So I'm very comfortable in having you program for me, with this 13-week, forever strength programs that you do. And one way it has helped me is I don't have to think about the workouts, but I am committed to the workouts because I know every week there's a minimum of 4 workouts that I do. I might add in a fifth one, but I don't have to worry about what am I going to do today. Oh, things that anybody does, whether you're a coach or whether you're just training, people have to think about that. If someone's doing the work for them, I'm committed to doing 2 upper body workouts and 2 lower body, or however we split it in that round. And it saves me a lot of time. Saves me a lot of time and it keeps me committed. And I can also see the change as I'm getting stronger over time because, the RIRs are preset, everything is set. So I just have to worry about, okay, what did I do last week? It's written down. Am I going to improve on this week? How do I feel? And I just, it keeps me going. One less thing I have to think about. So I love the program and I've loved the strength gains that I've received from it.
It's been a really rewarding experience. So it's a group program, one to many. If anybody has any specific questions, I'll get into more details. I don't want to get too in the weeds here. There'll be more details at the end, but it's fun to watch everybody in the community. So the members who post more, because there's a lot of members who just like quietly do it. They don't want to post videos, all good, no obligation, but it's fun to watch. I mean, Wanda is great. She's one of the
Yeah.
more active members. So she's posting a lot of PRs recently, and she's a little person, and she'll tell you she's dealing with scoliosis, and she's as strong as she's ever been. And there's another member named Sally. Sally's cool. Sally's in her mid 60s and is doing like reps for chin ups, and then
Saw that.
she sends me a video. This is great. It's my favorite part, and she just decides that she's gonna do pistol squats, right? I've got TRX pistols in there this last round, just as okay, this is different. Anyway, she's busting out no support, just straight reps for pistol squats. I'm like, holy shit, you need to post this in the group. Of course, this goes up, and everybody's just, what on earth is going on here?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
unbelievable. And another one of the more active members, Blair's great. So Blair is just coming off she had a fracture in her leg, and 9 weeks later, she's hitting PRs with new lifts. So this stuff.
I love all the attitudes. I love the attitude with which they come to these workouts. It's great. The support is great.
I appreciate having you. And again, you're a radiant part of the community too. And it's really fun to, have you posting the pictures of all the cool places you get. So with that, have you noticed differences in the other countries and cultures that you visit, their attitudes about health, fitness, access to gyms, etc.?
So Southeast Asia comes to mind. A lot of places in the world, I think people walk more than we do in North America. I think there's just a given based on how the communities are structured and how easy it is to get around. And many people, I remember in, I think Phuket, Thailand, there was a CrossFit gym, which I thought was really interesting because this was back in 2014. So it was very new to me to see CrossFit in another country, some small place. And then I realized the CrossFit gym in that place catered to all the visitors from Australia, all the visitors, because very close to there. So, for them. But most people in most countries that I've been to, I find that they walk a lot and their daily lives involve lifting, squatting, pushing, pulling. In Vietnam, I remember I'm looking at these ladies, older ladies who are pushing carts with coconuts and heavy items on them in the heat. So when you're doing that on a day-to-day basis for a living, you don't, I think, go to a gym to do a shoulder press. You're getting all the work in. So in terms of general culture, again, I've not been to a heck of a lot of places in Europe, but I know that Europe has a lot of walking as well. So in terms of gyms, I have not actually wandered into the cities enough to see a gym or like a chain like that. I will say that in on Easter Island, there's one gym and all the bodybuilders go there. So
Okay.
there's these, these guys, they work out. There's one gym in the on the entire island that I saw. It was a public gym. I'm sure the resorts and the hotels have their own little things, but people walk. People walk everywhere and they're pushing things and they're pulling things, hinging and squatting and all that stuff. So I'm sure I've seen a very physical activity heavy sort of society in many of these places.
There's certain places that I think of, and I'm comfortable saying that traditionally in Japan, people who are built like bodybuilders are seen more as like freaks. I think definitely it's not the cultural norm. There are a
Hmm.
handful of, there's a couple of very famous pro bodybuilders in like the very niche bodybuilding space
Yeah.
who've come at it who are Japanese, but I don't think it's like the norm to value being overly muscular in that culture. Um, I would definitely say Australia and New Zealand have always been ahead of the curve when it comes to focus on fitness. I think they're also very outdoors centric
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I feel like Canada and the US were just a little bit behind. I think there's a lot of emphasis, it's not entirely, but emphasis on like the aesthetic appearance out of the Australian fitness scene as well. But, hey, if that drives being active, great. And then I'm assuming there's lots of parts of the world where just there probably aren't as many gyms. But again, my world traveling is very limited. It's North America thus far, although it's my intention. One of the places I want to visit is Slovenia. I want to go to Eastern Europe, but I want to go visit my friend Luca Hocevar's, gym, his
Oh yeah.
brother's gym, which
Oh
is like
nice.
the first gym to really ever take strength and conditioning seriously in Slovenia, right? So
Right.
they're very iconic. They bring in a lot of continuing educations, but I just want to visit because I know it's beautiful there and like a lot of that region.
Yeah.
So my knowledge of this stuff is limited. I was just curious. I mean, there's no gym in Petra. I'm pretty confident of that.
There isn't a gym in Petra, not at the hotel we stayed at. Nope, no, but there are gyms in Jordan. There were other places in Jordan that I went to, Amman, Jordan,
Mhm.
had gyms. And a couple of other places. I think Aqaba was another place that we went to where there was a gym. I use a gym if I don't have an outdoor option. So for example, if my day is filled with like I'm doing like a hot air balloon ride at like 6 in the morning and then like hiking to Petra later in the day and doing something else, I probably will not go to the gym and do a strength training workout unless it's something that I've missed for a few days and I really need to get that upper body in because I'm getting a lot of work outside. However, within North America, if I'm traveling, I will almost always hit a gym in a hotel because I'm not doing something as strenuous here anyway. And going back to the gyms in other countries, one more place came to mind. India has changed quite a bit in the last
Mm.
few years that because I've visited and before, and the number of gyms and the culture of fitness and working out is really taking off. And I'm, excited. I'm going back again later this year, so I'm looking forward to checking some of those gyms out.
Hey, I live in Edmonton, the south side of Edmonton. So like I don't know the exact percentage, but I swear must be 30 to 40% of the population on the south side of this city is of South Asian
Okay.
background.
Yeah,
And you go to any gym on the southern side of the city, and 50% of the people in these gyms are South Asian, minimum, right? So just, and again, these are smaller representations, but
right.
they definitely gravitate to fitness culture. It's been
I
awesome.
like it. I like it because historically we have not really encouraged, especially the women in our culture, to work
Mm.
out. So the gym I go to, there's a guy who comes with his mom recently, and he'll bring her in and he'll show her all the machines and the exercise. And I think it's just absolutely fabulous that we need to be doing for our elders. I think it's a good thing for, our moms and our aunts and everyone to be lifting.
I can't remember the name of the book. You might know. Mike Dola recommended to me, and it talked a lot about cultural change in nutrition. God, a female author, I wish I could remember it. But
That's Mike.
it does talk, I can look it up.
Okay.
It does talk a fair bit about uh, some of the changes a few decades ago about the big food companies from North America coming in and negotiating with the Indian government at the time. You smiling, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, I don't know if this is still current, but as a population, people from India seem to be of lower muscle mass than average. Is that true? Can you speak on that a little bit?
I don't know if that is true, but from observation,
Yes.
I would say probably, and I don't want anybody to, I mean, if
Fair.
somebody has
Yeah.
some information, feel free to like add it. And I think it just might have a lot to do with the fact that in general, we're not lifting weights. So when you're not
Mm,
lifting weights as a population, you might not have as much muscle mass because how are you going to get the muscle if you're not lifting, if you're not resistance training, strength training? And there has been an advent of, the KFCs and the McDonald's and the Pizza Hut and the Taco Bell, everything you get here, you get in India. So
makes
there's a
sense.
fast food culture that definitely is rising, and it's a big deal for people to go out and eat, all that stuff because they haven't had it before.
And I'm fairly confident there was a major shift. And I know this book. God, is that it?
You're trying to get
No,
the
it's
name
not
of
it.
it.
I'm trying to get the name of the book. I can't find it. Oh well, it's all good. If I ever remember it, I'll have to
I'd
post
like
on
to read it,
social media.
yeah, or I'll just ask
Um,
Mike.
fantastic book either way. So,
Okay.
what about, we talked about this a little bit, but what about your own approach to, again, giving yourself grace and being able to enjoy local cuisine, that might be like outside of your normal routine? And how do you kind of offset that? I guess you talk about just how much you walk, so it almost takes care of itself, I'm guessing, in a lot of cases. But do you give yourself a lot of freedom to go, okay, I'm going to eat nutritious food, but I'm also going to enjoy what I want to in these different settings?
Yeah, when I'm on trips, I don't usually uh watch my nutrition too much
Mm,
because in my experience, I can only speak for myself, I don't ever come away from a vacation having put on weight. I put on pounds. I
mhm,
don't because everything, the walking offsets it. And I'm also very mindful of what I'm eating. I like experiencing local cuisine. I think it's a big
mm,
part of travel to try new things, to try new foods. And I will also, like I said, because I'm vegetarian, there's already a boundary on the things that I can eat. And I find that, as long as my protein intake is maintained for the major meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then I'm okay. I do enjoy uh, local cuisine without any barriers, and I make sure that I like to eat, that I eat what I like to eat. If there's in general, there are certain foods I just don't even like. I'm not a big sweet. I don't
mm.
have a big sweet tooth, so you won't see me eating like loads and loads of ice cream or sweets and things like that. I do like savory stuff a lot more. So for my own self, it hasn't been an issue of concern.
No, fair. When I travel, I'm kind of a combination of this stuff too. If I'm at a conference with, especially if I've got a lot of friends around, I tend to be very immersed in that conference because that's been a lot of my travel the last few years. So getting away from the conference, the event, to go to a gym isn't always, the ideal. I would rather be with my industry friends. Now, if and I recently wrote an article and you're featured in the article, and so if anybody wants to read it, and it's literally about tactics for travel to maintain nutrition and fitness. And I noted in there, if me and Luca Hocevar and our friend Nick Shaw, one of the owners of Renaissance Periodization, if we're together, the guys, it's non-negotiable. They will move. Like for them, they have to work out. They have to move their
Right.
bodies. So guess what? We'll just go to the gym. We'll go lift. We'll hang out, etc. It's quality time with my closest friends in my travels. But by and large, I mean, I work out so much that if I'm gone for a long weekend, okay, I'm probably going to get lots of steps that I'm actually not super worried about, like hitting a gym workout anyway. So that's kind of it for me now. If I'm home in Newfoundland, uh, I'm a member of, in Canada, I have a couple of gym memberships, but I'm a member of Good Life. So there's a Good Life near my family's home in St. John's, Newfoundland. It's easy for me to go over there. They're all laid out the same. So I'm in a very familiar environment compared to what I'm used to. And I've been going there for years.
Yeah.
So it's so low friction for me. I also have a vehicle while I'm there. I drive one of my parents' cars. Cool. I dip over, go for a couple hours, get out of the house. I'm good to go. But I also make the point of trying to walk around the downtown core of the city, get more steps too. And when I'm home with nutrition, my big thing is I just got to make sure I'm getting enough protein because
Yeah.
I will burn through the calories. And if I'm eating meals with friends, I tend to gravitate towards the steak and vegetables anyway, or a chicken and rice dish or something like that. I'm
Yeah.
usually not going for the higher, super high calorie stuff. I'll have lots of protein shakes along the way. So I've got those built-in base of protein, but I've got the room to basically enjoy. And if some really great indulgence comes along, there's room for it.
Yeah. So I think part of the thing that you're trying to say that we both have the same sort of approach is the general sort of foods that we gravitate towards are almost all the same. The difference is it's a different cuisine. When
Hmm.
I say I don't give myself rigid rules on travel, it's because I don't look at travel as, here we go. I don't have to stick to this. I can just go all out. I'm never going all out because I don't eat like that on a regular basis. So to me, travel is just another aspect of my life. And there are things I go see, there are foods I eat, and I'm mindful of what I eat. And the same principles apply. I try not to overeat and choose the protein, choose the vegetables, enjoy it, take your time eating it, and it'll kind of work itself out. That does come with time, though, because if we're
Mm.
always approaching food as a reward,
Mm.
and I'm on travel, I've earned it, I can't, I should have dessert every day. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to. You choose to. We choose things. At the end of the day, there's a second where it's like this or this, and that second makes a huge difference
And
over time.
you hit on something. And again, I will frequently use the words narrative, story, and belief. And they're relatively interchangeable in all here. And it's a story you tell yourself that I am entitled to dessert. I am entitled to that drink to de-stress at the end of the day. And I recently had, well, actually, this will air first, but they'll come out in the future with Danny Matranga. And we talked about if you have a small, short, small, relatively sedentary woman, like your feelings may be your feelings, but the reality is in order to maintain your body mass, you need a lower amount of calories. And if you try to build in like near daily alcohol into that as a significant portion of the amount of calories that you actually need to maintain your metabolic health, guess what? Doesn't leave much room left over. And it just doesn't work. And we live in this society where, especially the Western world, where everything's marketed to you in larger portions, larger
Yes.
amount of calories, and you feel entitled to have all this stuff. The reality is you can't, you're not, in order to actually maintain lean body mass.
That's a great point. I remember one of the places I used to work at as a trainer before, come Monday morning, we
Mm-hmm.
all, a few of us trainers trained in this one room, and there'll be some people coming in to train with some of the other trainers. And there's this one group that's like, oh, I just went out drinking this whole weekend. I feel like crap. Okay, let's go another week. And it was the same story every week. Friday night was, and Saturdays were like safe for drinking, and Monday they come, you're not feeling good about yourself. You haven't slept. Any progress you've made over the week has really, it has disappeared because we're falling into this endless cycle of reward at the end of the week for I don't know what, just getting through life, I guess. Sometimes, sure, there are things that you need to do to take care of yourself, sure. But when we come into this cycle of doing it all the time, that's where it can get very slippery. We have to really be mindful of what we can really intake, and like I said, smaller women require fewer calories. It's the uncomfortable truth, but it is the truth.
Yep, unfair. Now,
Unfair.
this ties in. So, as a personal trainer with a master's degree in public health, which is cool, rare and very cool, can people just wait for governmental and societal policy change to save them? You're smiling.
So one of the things I find in our North American or
Mm,
Western approach is there needs to be a fine balance between personal responsibility and
mm,
systemic things that need to change. Okay.
mm,
So we can't entirely rely on personal responsibility. Again, it's always situation dependent because sometimes there are things for certain people, certain populations that are out of their control in terms of access to food,
mm,
good quality vegetables, and things like that is what I mean by that.
mm,
Availability, distribution, and those are very valid uh, situations that we need to be aware of in terms of
mm,
health equity. Um, that's a separate topic. On the other
mm,
hand, I think what you're referring to is, while will they change the policy until then I'm going to do what I want to do? No, because at
mm,
the end of the day, to some degree, however small it might be, we are responsible for our health. And if
mm,
we are in a position where, you and I are doing really well, but people in our community are not, there are ways to sort of make grassroots movements to help increase the health of the entire community, lifting people up. I don't think we do much of that. So one example I will say is there are many areas in the US that are food deserts. People have
mm,
good intentions, but their good food isn't available there. They don't have access to a decent quality grocery store. And I recently heard of, trucks, like food trucks. They're like food trucks, but they're trucks where people go and grab like a lot of vegetables and good meats and egg and things like that, and they bring them in from like a farmer's market or some place that has the buy them in bulk, and they'll set up shop, and you offer these at an affordable price to a community, so people have the access to these things, and that makes a big difference because if you have a choice between 33 cents mac and cheese and an apple which costs way more, you are going to probably choose what's easiest and affordable for your family, So I think waiting for policy change, governmental change is going to be a long waiting game because there's a lot of red tape. There are people who do not know how reality is for many people and who are sitting and making some of these policies. So as much as we can take things into our own hands, control the things that you can control while allowing for, one or two indulgences that you think is important. I think it's important for us to take care of our own health in some ways.
And I always avoid getting actually political in terms of like the partisan side, but this is just an aspect of politics. Because of the North American short election cycle, politicians are almost overwhelmingly incentivized to do things that will get them, short-term reelected as opposed to long-term societal change. And they will very often won't make policy changes that might be unpopular. I I'll riff on this for a second. A lot of people might not agree with me, but I've long wished we would have a very aggressive, we'll call it a junk food tax. Now, people are going to have some problems with that. I'm talking like 100% on top of the cost of the food. Ban sales on any of these kind of foods. And we can then start getting into little exceptions for like Halloween candy and what have you. Okay.
Yeah.
But then take 50% of the revenue from this aggressive tax, which would, as a consumption tax at that level, would suppress some consumption. 50% of the money goes into healthcare to help with the metabolic health downstream effects, which we are dealing with, right? The cost of healthcare is rising. The other 50% would go to subsidize food deserts and access to healthy, nutritious food. So that way, because of course, one of the main arguments about increasing the price or heavily taxing junk food is then, well, the nutritious stuff's more expensive, right? So I don't know if anybody would ever do this, but I passionately believe this would be a great thing. Then there's going to be the whole argument about, well, you can't do that. It's a, freedom to whatever. And it's funny because I think both sides, and I'm not interested in the political landscape of the US, but I think both sides at different times had proposed the idea of, I think it was maybe in New York about like a soda tax or whatever. And each side has tried it, but that the other side objected. And a lot of times it's just partisan politics. It's like, holy shit, but I actually understand why it is the way it is. So you also have this resistance to actually put in effect a policy just simply because politicians are incentivized just to get elected, reelected.
I'll add one more thing to that. I would love it if we gave everybody a gym membership or some sort of access to getting help, getting them started. We live in this environment. So for us, going to the gym is like it's second nature. I would even say the gym is like a second home. It sounds very cliched, but I enjoy it. But for a lot of people, they don't like to work out. You don't have to like to work out. Gyms, I think, sort of came about because our lifestyle has changed. Back in the day, people had a lot of physically active jobs and they were always moving, and we didn't have the sort of modern conveniences that we have. So if we can get people in this environment, sure, tax the stuff, but also give them something to look forward to. Give them that gym membership. I think that would be a really cool thing. And another thing I wanted to say is when we what were we talking about? Yeah, when we encourage good behaviors, I think the industry, I would say like the food industry and all that, they're not looking out for our health. For them, it's, profit. When they say, something is low fat and this and that, at the end of the day, there's still something that they're getting out of it, which is profit. So the more aware our societies can be of how things are, of nutrition, basic level nutrition, I think that's a really good thing for entire societies. That's what I would say.
And you allude to something there. Each individual company may be very reluctant to make net positive health changes to their food because the other companies, again, they're all profit driven, right? And then people will demonize that excessively. It's like, I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of just the way that humans work. But if one company were to be proactive to do something that would like make their food less tasty, they're very likely to be punished in the sales and profit side of the equation. And without governmental like top-down regulation, which is also a controversial topic, then they're not necessarily going to change. Now, in a perfect utopian setting, what would you like to see change from, the nutritional standpoint, the big food industry stuff? What would you like to see change?
Oh boy. Okay. From a utopian standpoint, I would like companies to operate with more integrity. Okay. I know this is really getting into it because I don't think many companies are. We are expecting people to, we're putting people in a in an environment where there's constant access to food, to plenty of food, plenty of choice, and we are not empowering them with the education. By education, I don't mean like degrees. I just mean like bare bones education on, how some things are harming them. And this allows room for influencers and like wellness grifters and all those people to push their products. So ideally, I would like none of that, um, green supplement drink and things like that, to take over. I would really like people to, I would like companies to operate with a bit more integrity. I think that would help quite a bit in better nutrition policy. But I don't know if we'll get there.
Wishful thinking, right?
Wishful thinking.
I had a thought and I've lost it, but
It'll come
this
to
is
you.
well, we're almost out of time too. Just thinking about the big food companies and again, profit motive. It's probably really hard to incentivize them to be the leaders of change. Okay, I know too. We could have some fun with the food dyes and the other
Oh,
beef tallow and seed oils. We don't want to go too hard to seed oils because
no,
people
we
get really
don't.
passionate about this crap. But um, is this stuff all just fluff and show?
You mean all the arguments for X, Y, and Z?
Well, we're now seeing the pressure to get the food dyes out of food, and again, like switch to beef tallow and this crap.
So I'm going to say that we are not addressing the bigger things and we're going after the small things that seem like, hey, I'm doing something about seed oils or, beef tallow or food dyes and cereals when the society at large, the population at large has other things that require more attention. We are a relatively obese society, at least North America is. I think there's plenty of data to back that up.
Mm.
And we operate a lot on demonizing specific foods without, and complicating matters without making it easy for people. Too many people overthink everything. If you were to cut out meat, and then every camp is telling you something different. If you were to cut out meat and seed oils and this and that, you're left with nothing but air. And there will probably be somebody telling you that this air is bad for you, have this air. So we need to find the signal and cut out all the noise. And I don't think we're very good at doing that because it is a free-for-all kind of society with everybody coming in with their 2 cents. And who hurts is that person who is just looking to maybe be a little bit better every day and they just want to earn a living, be healthy, add years to their life, and not necessarily life to their year. You know what I mean? Or add life to their years, not years to their life, and live well. And I think we're really missing that when we focus on something so narrow as food dyes. In many ways, it's a very elitist and privileged sort of way to pretend like you're addressing something without really addressing chronic disease and all that kind of stuff.
This has been fantastic.
Thank
Lavanya
you.
Krishnan, thank you for coming on. It's great to
Thank
see
you
you.
very much.
Now, you're rare amongst my guests in that you don't necessarily have a big social media presence. It's mostly just like your travel stuff, which has been great.
Yeah.
But if there's anywhere you would like people to, check out what you're doing, where could they follow you? Where can they find any resources?
Like I said, I do not have a social media presence because when I started training, I was doing a lot. I mean, I still do a lot of in-person training, so I'm sort of super old school. I will set up a social
Mhm.
media account where people can start following me, and I'll give you that information as soon as I do that. But
Okay.
my email is always great. If anybody has any questions or thoughts and wants to have a chat, I can give. Do you want me to say it now, or do I
Yeah,
just send?
say it right now. Yeah.
Okay, so it's L_Krishnan, Krishnan at yahoo.com. One of the original Yahoo users, and I still have it.
Say it again for me. I want to make sure everybody got
Yep, it's
it.
L_KRISHNAN at yahoo.com.
.com, not .ca. We're Canadians,
Yes,
but
I know, but I used to live in the US when I
fair.
started that. Yeah, yeah,
Great. Well,
yes.
thank you again. This has been
Thank you very much.
wonderful. I hope everybody enjoys. Please stick around. I'm sponsoring my own episode, my Forever Strength program. The registration is open now. And if anybody is listening and you guys are interested, let me know. You're going to hear a lot of this stuff again. So thank you. And I will be seeing your workouts online. And for everybody
Absolutely.
else, stay tuned for more great guests. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I put a ton of work into bringing you industry leading guests. I also put a ton of work into my coaching programs. Registration is now open for my Forever Strength 13-week online women's strength program. It starts Monday, June 30th, but secure your spot today. I cap registration at 125 members. This round offers between 2 and 4 full body strength workouts. It's flexible for you because summers get busy and you don't want to drop your strength training completely until fall. You can choose between a gym program or a home dumbbell and TRX version. There are tons of great programs out there, but here's what sets mine apart. While my program is structured so you can function independently, I'm here when you need help. For form feedback, coaching, support, and I reply promptly, not just in 24 hours. I've heard horror stories about coaches and programs that charge high ticket prices only to have the coach take days to respond, if they even do at all. More and more coaches are trying to automate, systemize, and scale themselves out of interacting with their clients or even being a real human. You'd get better support from an app. Instead, try my support and program this summer, all for just $160 Canadian, and you can save 10% on that using the code LIFTFREE, all one word, LIFTFREE. Register at foreverstrength.ca or use a link in the show notes or message me directly on Instagram. I'll hook you up. If you're a coach, you're welcome to. We often put our own training last, and it's nice to have a plan and support when you need it. You're welcome to join to experience how I run my program. Registration closes Monday, July 7th.